I caught my fiancée with our neighbor 72 hours before our wedding. Married her anyway because of her 2 kids who I love like my own. I know how this sounds. Trust me, I've replayed this scenario in my head 1,000 times over the past 6 months, and each time I come to the same conclusion. I'm either the biggest fool on earth or I made the only decision I could live with. You can judge for yourselves. Let me start from the beginning. Sarah and I had been together for 3 years when I proposed. She had 2 kids from a previous relationship, Emma, 8, and Jake, 6, and from day one, those kids became my world. Their biological father had been out of the picture since Jake was 2, and I stepped into that role naturally. Emma started calling me dad about a year into our relationship, and Jake followed suit shortly after. I legally adopted them both last year. The wedding was planned for Saturday in June. It was going to be perfect, a small ceremony in Sarah's parents' backyard. About 50 guests, nothing too fancy, but everything we wanted. I had taken that Friday off work to handle last-minute details and maybe sneak in some alone time with Sarah before the chaos of the weekend began. That's when my world imploded. I came home around 2 p.m. with flowers, sunflowers, Sarah's favorites, thinking I'd surprise her. The kids were at Sarah's mom's house for the night, giving us some rare, quiet time before becoming husband and wife. I used my key, pushed open the front door, and called out, "Honey, I'm home," like some cheesy sitcom character. No response. I figured she was in the shower or maybe taking a nap. Wedding stress had been keeping her up lately. I headed toward our bedroom, still holding those damn sunflowers when I heard it. Moaning. Not the I'm in pain kind. The other kind. My first instinct was denial. Maybe she was watching something on her phone. Maybe it was coming from next door. Our neighbor Mike had thin walls, and we'd heard things before. But as I got closer to our bedroom, the voices became clearer. Sarah's voice and Mike's voice. I stood frozen in our hallway for what felt like hours, but was probably 30 seconds. The rational part of my brain was screaming at me to leave, to give them a chance to finish and confront this like an adult later. But the other part, the part that was dying inside, needed to see it with my own eyes. I pushed the door open. There was my fiancée of 3 years, the woman I was supposed to marry in less than 72 hours, the mother of the 2 children I loved more than life itself, naked and tangled up with Mike from next door. Our 45-year-old divorced neighbor who I'd helped move his couch just last month. They didn't notice me at first. I stood there like an idiot, still holding those sunflowers, watching my entire future crumble in real time. It wasn't until I accidentally stepped on a creaky floorboard that they realized they had an audience. Sarah screamed. Mike scrambled for his clothes. I just stood there, bouquet in hand, probably looking like the world's saddest romantic comedy protagonist. "Jesus Christ, David," Sarah yelled, pulling our comforter around herself. "What are you doing here?" What was I doing there? In my own house. 3 days before my wedding. "I brought you flowers," I said stupidly because apparently my brain had short-circuited. Mike was hopping around trying to get his pants on, muttering apologies and excuses about how this wasn't supposed to happen, and it just got out of hand. Sarah was crying, saying my name over and over like a broken record. I set the flowers on our dresser, the same dresser where I'd been keeping Sarah's wedding ring hidden for weeks, planning to surprise her with an upgrade, and walked out. I drove around for hours. I called in sick to my brother's bachelor party rehearsal dinner. Yeah, we were doing a joint thing. How's that for irony? I sat in parking lots, walked through parks, even went to a movie by myself just to sit in the dark and pretend this wasn't happening. My phone was buzzing constantly. Sarah calling, texting, leaving voicemails. Mike even called once, which took some balls. I ignored them all. Around 11 p.m., I finally went home. Sarah was waiting in the living room, fully dressed, eyes red from crying. "We need to talk," she said. You think. What followed was the most brutal conversation of my life. She told me it had been going on for 2 months. It started innocently. Mike had been going through a rough divorce. Sarah was stressed about the wedding. They'd talk over the fence while the kids played in the backyard. One thing led to another. She swore it was just physical. She swore she loved me, wanted to marry me, that Mike meant nothing. She cried and begged and promised it would never happen again. I wanted to believe her. God, how I wanted to believe her. But then I thought about Emma and Jake. They were supposed to walk down the aisle with us, carrying little baskets of flower petals. Emma had been practicing her flower girl walk for weeks. Jake had learned to tie his own tie specifically for the wedding. What about the kids? I asked. What about them? Do they know? Sarah looked confused. Know what? About Mike. About this. She shook her head quickly. No, of course not. David, this doesn't have to change anything with Emma and Jake. You're their dad. This is between you and me. That's when it hit me. She was right, but not in the way she meant. Emma and Jake were my kids now, legally and emotionally. If I called off the wedding, if Sarah and I broke up, what would happen to them? Sure, I'd still have legal rights as their adoptive father, but realistically, Sarah could make my life hell. She could move away, limit my time with them, poison them against me. These weren't just Sarah's kids anymore. They were our kids. And they didn't deserve to have their family blown apart because their mom made a terrible choice. I told Sarah I needed time to think. She nodded, said she'd stay at her sister's place until I figured things out. The next morning, Saturday, one day before the wedding, I woke up to Emma calling my phone. Daddy? Mommy says the wedding might not happen. Why? My heart shattered into a million pieces. It's just grown-up stuff, sweetheart. Don't worry about it. But I practiced my flower girl walk. And Jake learned to tie his tie. I know, baby. I know. After I hung up, I made my decision. I called Sarah and told her to come home. When she arrived, I had 3 conditions. 1, she cuts all contact with Mike immediately. He was dead to us. 2, we go to marriage counseling starting the week after our honeymoon. 3, she tells me everything. Every detail, every lie, every moment of the last 2 months. Complete transparency going forward. She agreed to all 3 without hesitation. So we got married. On that Sunday in June, with Emma skipping down the aisle scattering flower petals and Jake proudly wearing his self-tied tie, Sarah and I exchanged vows. When the officiant asked if anyone had any objections, I half expected Mike to speak up, but he didn't. He wasn't even there. Apparently Sarah had uninvited him, claiming a family emergency. Our wedding photos are beautiful. You'd never know that 48 hours earlier, I'd caught my bride cheating on me. Sarah looks radiant, I look happy, and the kids look absolutely thrilled to officially be a family. The honeymoon was weird. We went to Hawaii as planned, just the 2 of us. The kids stayed with Sarah's parents. We barely touched each other the first few days, but slowly we started talking. Really talking. Sarah opened up about feeling overwhelmed by the wedding planning, by the pressure of blending our lives, by her fears about being a good wife after her first marriage failed so spectacularly. None of it excused what she did, but it helped me understand it. We started marriage counseling the following week. Dr. Morrison was this no-nonsense woman in her 60s who didn't let either of us get away with anything. Sarah had to confront why she'd cheated instead of communicating her feelings. I had to confront my own issues with trust and control. It was brutal. There were sessions where we both left crying. Sessions where we screamed at each other in the parking lot afterward. Sessions where I seriously considered filing for divorce. But we kept going back. Meanwhile, life with Emma and Jake continued. They had no idea what had happened between their mom and me. As far as they knew, we'd gotten married and lived happily ever after. Emma started 5th grade that fall and made the honor roll. Jake learned to ride his bike without training wheels. We went to soccer games and school plays and family barbecues, playing the part of the perfect blended family. And slowly, maybe despite myself, that's what we became. Sarah kept her word about Mike. She blocked his number, avoided him completely, even started parking in our garage instead of the driveway to minimize any chance encounters. Mike tried to approach me once while I was mowing the lawn, probably to clear the air or apologize, but I told him if he ever came near my family again, we'd have bigger problems than an awkward conversation. Marriage counseling helped. A lot. We learned to communicate better, to address problems before they festered into resentments. Sarah learned to be completely transparent about everything. Her feelings, her whereabouts, her interactions with other people. It was exhausting at first, but became natural after a while. About 4 months after the wedding, something shifted. We were having dinner as a family. Sarah had made Jake's favorite spaghetti and meatballs. Emma was telling us about her science project on volcanoes, and I looked around the table and realized I was genuinely happy. Not pretending to be happy, not happy despite everything that had happened, but actually truly happy. Sarah caught me staring and smiled. What? Nothing. Just. This is nice. Yeah, it is. That night, we made love for the first time since I caught her with Mike. It felt like a new beginning. We started dating again, if that makes sense. Going out to dinner while the kids were at sleepovers, taking walks together in the evenings, rediscovering what we'd liked about each other in the first place. Sarah was making an effort to be the wife she should have been all along, and I was making an effort to be the husband she needed. The kids thrived. Emma joined the school drama club and landed the lead in their spring production of Annie. Jake started taking piano lessons and turned out to have real talent. We were the family cheering the loudest at every recital, every game, every school event. By our first anniversary, I could honestly say I was glad we'd stayed together. Not just for the kids, but for us. We'd been through hell and came out stronger. Sarah had proven she could be trusted again. I'd proven I could forgive and move forward instead of holding grudges. We even started talking about having another baby. Life was good, really good. Then, last month, Mike moved away. He came over to say goodbye, kept it brief and respectful, just wanted to wish us well. Sarah wasn't home, which was probably for the best. We shook hands like civilized adults, and he started loading the last of his stuff into a moving truck. That's when Emma and Jake came running outside. "Mr. Mike," Emma yelled, giving him a big hug. "Where are you going?" "I'm moving to Portland, kiddo. New job opportunity. But we'll miss you." Jake chimed in. Mike knelt down to their level, and that's when he said something that stopped my heart. "I'll miss you guys too. Take care of yourselves, okay? And remember, I'll always love you both, no matter where I am." The way he said it, the way he looked at them, the way they looked at him. Emma has Mike's eyes. I'd never noticed before, but standing there in the afternoon sunlight, it was unmistakable. The same unusual green-gray color, the same shape. Jake has Mike's nose, his exact nose, and his ears, those slightly prominent ears that I'd always thought were just one of Jake's quirky features. After Mike drove away, I went inside and really looked at the kids. I mean, really looked. Emma was born 9 years ago. Sarah and her ex-husband divorced when Emma was barely 2 and Jake was an infant. Sarah always said their biological father had been absent, unreliable, that he'd walked away from his responsibilities. But what if? What if he hadn't walked away? What if he'd been right next door this whole time? I started doing math in my head. Mike had lived next door for 7 years, ever since his own divorce. He'd always been friendly with the kids, always available to help Sarah when she needed it, especially after her ex-husband left. Too available, maybe. That night, after the kids were in bed, I asked Sarah about Mike and the timeline. "What do you mean?" she asked, but something flickered in her eyes. "I mean, when exactly did Mike move in next door? And when exactly did your ex-husband move out?" Sarah was quiet for a long time. "Too long. Sarah, it's not what you think." "What am I thinking?" "Mike isn't. He's not their father, David. Not their biological father. But," another long pause, "he might be Emma's father. We had a brief thing right after my divorce was finalized. Before you and I met. She was born in an inconvenient time, and it was easier to let everyone think she was my ex-husband's daughter. My blood ran cold. What about Jake? Jake is definitely your ex-husband's son. I did a paternity test when he was born because I wasn't sure, but Jake is not Mike's. I felt like I was going to throw up. So Emma is Mike's daughter? Probably. Like I said, the timing was complicated. Does Mike know? I don't know. Maybe. We never talked about it directly, but he's always been extra attentive to Emma. I thought maybe he suspected. Does Emma know? Of course not. I sat there processing this information. My 8-year-old daughter, because she is my daughter, adoption papers and all, was very likely the biological child of the man I'd caught cheating with my wife. The man who had just moved across the country, telling Emma he'd always love her no matter where he was. Is this why you slept with him? Some kind of unfinished business. Sarah started crying. I don't know. Maybe. Partly. It's so complicated, David. I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did happen. All of it. The affair, the lies about Emma's paternity, the years of letting me believe. You are her father. Biology doesn't change that. You're the one who taught her to ride a bike, who helps her with homework, who goes to every school play. Mike is just genetic material. She was right, but it still felt like another betrayal. Another fundamental lie our marriage was built on. We talked until 3 a.m. Sarah answered every question I had, no matter how painful. She told me about her brief relationship with Mike after her divorce, about the pregnancy scare and the relief when she thought Emma belonged to her ex-husband, about the growing suspicion over the years that maybe she'd been wrong. She also told me that Mike had never once asked for a paternity test or pushed to be part of Emma's life beyond the neighborly relationship they had. If he suspected Emma was his daughter, he'd respected Sarah's choice to raise her as part of her existing family structure. What now? I asked as the sun started to rise. Now we decide if this changes anything, Sarah said. Mike is gone. Emma doesn't know. Jake doesn't know. This can stay buried if that's what you want. But I realized I didn't want it buried. Emma deserved to know her biological father, even if Mike would never be her real dad in any way that mattered. And Mike deserved to know he had a daughter, even if he'd never be more than a periodic visitor in her life. More importantly, I deserved a marriage built on complete honesty, not just the kind of honesty that was convenient. We tell Emma, I decided, when she's older, when she can understand. But we tell her the truth. And Mike, we contacted Mike. We get a paternity test to be sure. And if Emma is his daughter, we figure out what that means for everyone involved. Sarah nodded. Okay, we do this together. Together. So that's where we are now. We've been in touch with Mike. He's agreed to the paternity test and has been incredibly respectful about the whole situation. He's made it clear that he's not trying to disrupt Emma's life or challenge my role as her father. He just wants to know for sure, and if Emma is his daughter, he'd like the chance to be part of her life in whatever way works for everyone. Emma and Jake still don't know any of this. They think Mike moved away for work, which is technically true. We'll tell them the truth when Emma is old enough to handle it. Probably when she's a teenager and starts asking questions about genetics and family history. In the meantime, Sarah and I are still in counseling. This latest revelation has been another test of our marriage, but we're handling it better than I expected. Maybe because we've already been through the fire once and learned how to communicate through a crisis. I know this whole story sounds insane. I know most people would have walked away after catching their fiancé cheating, and even more would have walked away after learning about the paternity issue. But here's the thing. Emma and Jake are my kids. Period. I don't care about DNA or biology or who was sleeping with him 5 years ago. Those kids call me dad, and I call them my children, and nothing, not cheating, not lies, not paternity revelations is going to change that. Sarah made terrible choices. She lied to me. She cheated on me. She kept massive secrets from me. But she's also worked harder than anyone I know to rebuild our trust, to become the wife and mother our family needs her to be. She's proven that people can change, that mistakes don't have to define you forever. And our marriage, weird as it is, works. We're happy. The kids are happy. We've built something real and lasting from the ashes of betrayal and deception. I married my cheating fiancé because I couldn't bear the thought of losing my children. But I stayed married to her because I realized that sometimes the best families are the ones you choose to fight for, especially when everything is stacked against you. We're not perfect. We're probably not normal by most people's standards. But we're a family, and that's enough for me.